Good afternoon, everyone. We are now at 1 o'clock, so I'd like to call to order our meeting for the Erie Land Bank for July 15th. And I would like to start off by seeking a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes from our meeting on June 17th.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That takes us to our finance report.
Thank you. So in your packet, you have your balance sheet as of June 30th. It's showing total bank accounts of $160,242.92. The property list has been updated, so it is showing a little over $53,000 in properties held for sale. On the next page, the profit and loss, it's showing total profit of $11,067.44. Also the check detail list, all of the checks that were dispersed for the month of June. And now we also have the budget versus actual in there, showing just January through June. If you had any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
So April, looks like we're all caught up on our reimbursements. And
Yes.
the difference here, so thank you.
Just maybe have one quick question. I just see under the budget versus actuals, we're just a little ahead with regard to the condemnation and acquisition. Did we expect to be? I'm just curious if we think that's going to put us in any kind of situation for the balance of the year.
So, under condemnation acquisition, so for the remaining part of this year, we should be fine. We only have 4 properties for condemnation under the land bank. The overrun is due to the the legal drawn-out process for some of the ones from last year. So that's what's raising our bill that we didn't quite anticipate. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
No other questions? Okay. If not, I would seek a motion to approve the financial report as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Takes us to citizens' comments. Any citizens wishing to speak? Aaron, any input? Anybody send any comments?
No, I haven't really heard from anybody in
Okay.
regards to land bank. So.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to report of the executive director.
Awesome. So I don't really have a report for you today. Really, most of my stuff was going to focus around the judicial tax sale and then the update on the fire. So I'll provide those when we get to that point. So nothing really new to report. So as Jake and I continued over probably last month, we spent some time with the county land bank looking at some of the agreements and some of the processes out of Ohio and trying to work toward getting the policies and procedures updated as quickly as we can, but as thoroughly as possible. So we're hoping to have those, sometime here in the near future, but we want to make sure we're working with Gene and his staff to get as much flushed out as we possibly can. So.
Are you discovering some good ideas and best practices you think we can?
Yeah. That was it. Trumbull County, Jake, that shared.
It's TriCog, so
Tri-
what they end up being.
Within the TriCog's Pittsburgh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the
Was
one
it
document I
Pittsburgh?
have is from TriCog, and then there's Trumbull County as well, but there's just a lot of different things of what people are doing and how we can kind of implement that into our practice. We're not far off, but there's just some things that kind of give them a little upper edge on some of these properties that I think would be nice for us to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to keep talking and keep exploring, and just like some have reached out to us because of the good progress we've made, there's always an opportunity to learn from someone else too. So
Yeah.
thank you for looking into that. I want to try to continue to drive, look for ways to tweak and make things better, so thank you.
Yeah. And I guess the only other thing is we will be doing a presentation at the annual conference for Pennsylvania Association of Redevelopment Authorities and Housing Authorities. I screwed that up, but in October in Erie, as far as land bank, and I'm going to join with Brian. from Westmoreland County. His last name escapes me at the moment, but he's the executive director of the Westmoreland County Land Bank. So we're going to do a joint presentation to the PARA group on land banking. So
If you don't mind forwarding those dates, and I say it every time, I like to put it in my calendar, and then it usually gets bumped, but we'll try again. So if you don't mind forwarding that.
yeah, absolutely.
If we're available, any of us, I think we'd like to sit in. So. Okay, you good, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. Any questions, any comments? Let's go ahead and move on to our solicitor's report then. Gene?
Good afternoon, Board. We've had a number of transactions that we're able to finalize of recent as well. We do have the 3 quiet title actions going to get those finalized, and I'm expediting those. I also wanted to advise the Board that all the title searches are back on last year's tax sales acquisitions, so that those can, because the next list is out, so we're ready to file that large quiet title action by the end of this month, so that's in process. So when the next batch that's now out, when that determination is made as to what properties that we're just churning it right straight through. So we've waited the requisite period of time, so it's ripe. I have the title searches back. There's a little bit of a delay from my title searcher on prioritizing, and we've kind of cleared that on transactions, sales and purchases. I didn't want him to push these in the back burner, and I think that maybe he did a little bit. So I have them all in now, going to finalize them, and those will be filed by the end of the month. So we're in a good place. And until the tax, I just found out the tax sale list is out. So here we go. So we're in good place. And again, that's what I wanted to have it, so that there was an overlap, that we were able to move through in nice transition. So I thank you for that. And that's it.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I apologize because I missed last month's meeting, but I just wondered if the issue we had discussed with Best, with some of that, had that been dealt with? And like I said, I missed last month, so.
It has been. It's been addressed and going to get resolved here in very short order. They know, been in contact with their attorney to make sure that they're aware of the progress and that it is a top priority.
Okay.
So it will be. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, good question. You beat me to it. I was going to ask
Absolutely.
again.
Oh, okay,
Even though
good.
you weren't here last month, I was going to ask again. So
Thank you.
it's all good. We're good, Gene? That's it? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on then to unfinished business and new business. We have a developers agreement.
All right, so brought this to the board, I think it was back in March, and so, you know, we kind of talked through some things back then. Mr. Bauman was here to talk to the board. We kind of talked about a option agreement on the property. We've tried to work through that, but you know, in talking with Jake and Evan, you know, I think it's in everyone's best interest to present this to the board to enter into a sales developer agreement on this property. You know, Evan's not going to proceed any further with any planning on this project and working toward development of a house until he is under sales agreement. I think some of the questions were raised, you know, he's worried, you know, and really we can sit here all day and we can talk about what might happen, but we can't do that, you know. So I think it's in the best interest of the land bank and this property that we enter into a sales agreement, allow Evan to provide us some time frame for that development of that property, give it that date as far as when it will sunset, and then, you know, allow him to proceed forward. And so Jake can add any context.
Yeah, I've been continually talking with Evan, and he's kind of at the point, like Aaron said, like, I don't want to invest more time into this if it's not going to go anywhere. I think that he's a good candidate to build there. I think he's given us a great plan. I know we were a little tied up on how long it's going to take him, but in reality, you know, Aaron and I have learned more as we've talked to different developers about timelines on things, and it's going to be a little bit, you know. I guess some things that, you know, I looked into our current developer agreement Like the last one we did, we gave 14 months for a structure that's already there for them to rehab. So I would think that to build new, we would definitely be more than that. Just kind of loose things that Aaron and I had talked about was have a structure there by 2025, December 2025, and the only real stipulation would be that he can't sell that lot for a profit. If for some reason, I know we went into a lot more craziness, but, if he buys it for 20 grand, if he needs to resell it, he needs to resell it for 20 grand. There's no profit making on his end. And I think that I don't feel that that's going to be the case, that we're going to have to get into that, because he is interested in doing it. I mean, if you guys have seen his review or his plan, he's got the right people involved in it. It's just literally going to be construction times from everything that I've talked to that we're going to be waiting on. I mean, he's working with some of the larger builders in our area, and I'm sure if you called them and wanted to build a house, they'd probably be telling you the same thing, just that's what timing's going to be.
I love his plans. The only thing that gave me pause, a couple things on here,
Sure.
is he's not willing to sign a right of reverter, right?
Yeah.
He's open to, I think that the last time we all talked, he was, a lot went wrong, and then it just was
Because we still
nerve-wracking
need
to
that
him.
mechanisms. Like you said, if we fast forward a year or two and he hasn't broken ground because something happened, and that happens.
Right.
We don't want him to flip the lot for a profit.
Well, that's why he would.
So if you don't sign a right of reverter,
Right.
aren't we leaving that open?
Well, I guess that would be the stipulation that he can't sell it for a profit. So then, maybe a couple years down the road, he sells it to somebody else who wants to do it as well. I mean, the true right of reverter would be us taking it from him and giving him nothing for it. So I don't think anybody's going to sign
we're
that. But I guess whatever way you'd want to write that, we can certainly explore that. Like I said, he's ready to go. He just has been, at this point, I feel that we've kind of stalled him, if anything.
So the two
And
things.
I understand where you're coming from, and we don't want to, not have anything happen there, but I also don't want us to hinder development that could be happening as well, worrying about what could or could not be the case, So I think we got to kind of tread that line of what are we going to do,
Yeah.
If we keep kicking it down the road, it's going to be longer and longer. So if we can get something that both parties are interested in, I think it's in our best interest to do it, because he's ready,
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
waiting on us.
I want to work with him too, and I don't want to sound like I'm,
Nope. I actually agree with you, Chris, on that. I mean, if he doesn't initial that and he doesn't sign that, then what right will we have if he decides to sell that property after it's,
So I guess what are you
completed?
looking for then? Because I mean,
Well, there's-
like the true right of reverter would be, we're going to take it back from
well,
him.
I'll make my 2 points, and I'll let everybody make their.
Sure.
The two things. Number one, I get it. If a project doesn't come together, he should have the ability to sell the lot later, but any kind of profit that is made over and above that needs to go back to the land bank. We can't set a precedent
Right.
where you profit off of this.
Absolutely.
And given the location of that lot, that's very possible that somebody could flip it, right? I'm not saying that's his intent. I'm not
Right.
saying that at all. He has a right to sell it someday, but he's not going to make any profit on this. He'll just get his money back.
Right.
So if we can write that into it. And number two, there's not a willingness to guarantee that it won't be a rental, from what I've read. That makes me uncomfortable. We're not going to put a rental in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So there would have to at least be a short list of people that would be living at that address. I think he said it's either him or his family.
From what I understand, it's either going to be himself or his mother. So I've never really got the hint from him that he's looking to
Right.
rent
And
it
again,
to-
I don't think he's looking to do that.
Right.
But things change. And I don't want to get 2 or 3 years from now, and then it ends up trying to put a rental there, which was not the intent of this board, or at least for me. I'll let
Right.
everybody else speak. So I don't know if we put a 5-year deed restriction on there. I don't know if we have some kind of agreement up front that says, okay, here are the folks that are going to possibly live in this
Sure.
house. Okay?
I mean,
And
I guess.
I'll defer to our council on that, but those are my 2 things. He can't flip it for a profit,
Mm-hmm.
and it cannot be a rental. So however that has to be worded, and then I'll let my colleagues speak.
I guess just to clarify your rental point, are you meaning he can't build a multi-unit structure, or he can't rent a single-family home down the road at some point?
I guess I'm not ready yet, even though this has sat for a while. I'm
Sure.
not ready to sell this to someone who is looking to just,
And from everything I've talked to him, I don't think that's his intention.
I don't think it is.
I think his intention is to build a single-family home. I just don't know what he'll say if we say, oh, you can build a single-family home, but you can't ever rent it, you know? I understand where you're coming from with that for sure, but at the same time, it starts getting into some of the deeper, what can you and can't you do with your place after it's built, you know?
yeah, but we have an obligation though to maintain the character of that neighborhood. That goes for any neighborhood for that matter.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And I don't, certainly not multi-unit, even if there was even if that was allowed in our zoning and he could get it that way. I wouldn't want to encourage that.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think we want him to do that either. I'm just more or less thinking if he does build a single-family home and lives there for a couple of years and then maybe something changes and he's gonna keep it and rent it, I don't know how comfortable anybody would be. I'm not trying to be complicated, but I'm playing devil's advocate too.
Right.
Of if I'm building this house, you know, I just think we're gonna struggle to get someone to be in agreement to us control it after it's constructed, you know? So that's the only reason why I ask. I mean, once we kind of get the development, which is what we're looking for, I think it's hard for us to
Yeah.
try to try to determine what somebody can do with it once they're
I will say,
completed.
from experience, that our memorandum to develop that Gene files on the properties when we put developer out there is for the redevelopment authority. We have many out there, and we did have a property, commercial property on Parade Street from, I think, 2008. The developer owned it, went to sell it last year. During the title search, they found that, and it says that he's not to landhold, he's not to profit, and they had to go back and they sold it to the new owner for the same price that he purchased it from the authority from, because all proceeds would have had to come back to the authority, and it was really just in their best interest to sell to the new owner at the same price. He entered into a new developer agreement, and we now have that one on the books instead of the previous purchaser. So
Yeah,
certainly,
I'm not trying to throw a hurdle up here. I want to work with him. I thought when we met with him, he seemed like, I think it's legitimate.
yeah,
I just don't want to, because I also know things change.
Sure.
I mean, every deal I look at, a lot of them don't get to the end because things change.
Oh, for sure.
And we just cannot, and especially that parcel where I could envision it being flipped for a profit, we just can't allow that to
Yeah,
happen.
and I mean, he's been
100%.
well aware of that from the
Yeah.
beginning, that's not even something that's on the table. So I'm not necessarily worried about that one at all. I think just the word reverter can kind of screw people up, where typically that's us taking it, you know, and I don't think that would be exactly what you're looking for.
I guess I just want to add, and I know Deb, I want to leave some time too. It sounds to me what Aaron is saying is our agreements have teeth. So we feel comfortable with the agreement to put in what we want in terms of no profit without going to the point of the reverter, because I understand the reverter that would scare me as well. But given the example you just gave, if our agreements have teeth, then we can be assured that he's not going to make a profit. I'd be very comfortable with that. With regard to the rental, I'm also in agreement. I mean, in my mind, our mission here should be to create opportunities for folks who want to own their own home and live in it. Like, that should be what we're going after here. So I actually don't have a problem being pretty firm on that, to say, if you're building it for yourself, okay, your mother, your immediate family, but beyond that, and maybe I hear you, Jake, but maybe there's a time limit or something we can at least put on it to say, within 10 years, you cannot rent this. Now, I don't know how we enforce that, because I'm not sure, where or when that would be triggered. I suppose they'd have to get some sort of permit for that. But I'm
Well, I
with
thi-
Chris.
I think you do it through a deed restriction, and I'll defer to our counsel, but I think you can put
It is.
like a 5-year limit where, okay, we take you at your word, this is not your intent. We also understand things change, and you can't make it forever. But we want to make it so that what you're saying here in your application, we expect that to be true. It's either going to be you or family.
Right.
And so if I rent to a family member, that's between me and them, and it's not I don't consider that a rental, but
And that's the intent, is the documentation is filed of record, much like in that situation, so that the next buyer, when they're doing the title search, that's showing up, that's in the chain of title, like, whoa, wait a second, here, this places a limit on any factor that we want to integrate into it, that you can't make a profit on it, so that they need to, okay, we need to renegotiate this and do something a little bit different. So there is certainly ways for us to put the teeth in the documentation that are filed of record, for sure.
You're right. No, I agree with Daria and you as well. We put a deed restriction on it. He wouldn't be able to sell it after a certain amount of time. And then you could also put in that document that it has to be sold to someone who is going to be a homeowner, and that be their principal residence.
because I also feel like if we were to make this decision today and allow this, we would almost have to, we would have to get input from the neighbors, wouldn't we? Wouldn't we owe the immediate neighbors a little bit? I mean, if there was a possibility that this was going to be a rental, maybe not technically, and maybe
I'd
not.
have a hard time just believing that somebody would construct a single-family home to rent. I mean,
I do
with
too.
construction
I do
costs, I don't think you would ever,
Yeah.
it would be a losing battle from the beginning. So I don't think it's really something that we should be too terribly concerned with. I understand everything but I mean, what are the prefabs? We're talking in the mid-2s for a
It
1,000
doesn't
square
pencil
foot,
out.
so-
I don't think he's trying that.
So, building what he's showing us he wants to build, you're probably talking 400,000 all day long. And to make money on that, the rent in this area just does not even make that make sense in the slightest. So I don't know that would ever really become a thing, but
I'm comfortable with what we've discussed in terms of the assurances and the deed restrictions. I don't know that we would need, that's just my opinion. And I guess I also want to say, as we're having this conversation, I want us to be mindful that we take the same care for other properties in other neighborhoods. Like, I want to be careful we're not giving over consideration because this is frontier neighborhood. We should be this careful and this mindful no matter where we're doing these developer agreements. That's just, I think, a reminder.
I agree,
for
and I
us.
think we are. I mean,
Yeah.
when somebody comes in here, the very first thing we ask them is, are you a landlord, or are you going to own it? Or are you going to live there?
'Cause that's our
And-
mission. I mean-
And that's our mission, and I think we're trying to apply it evenly. I hope we are. The difference here is that this is going to, we don't typically see new construction, so, maybe we're focusing too much on it, but I want to support it. Maybe we can just implement or incorporate those minor changes. I'm not even sure how we want to word that, but,
So can you guys bring us a draft?
I was going to say, I mean, I'll leave it up to the will of the board and how they want to proceed. So, we can certainly put together a developer's agreement with all of the stipulations, and work with Gene and get whatever we will need as far as deed restrictions kind of drafted out and to the board for review, whether you want to do that before you agree to the entire proposal. I mean, we could work to get to that point before the next board meeting. It's just kind of one of those, if we're going to get Evan on board, he's going to, know what we need to get to him, from him, so that we can all be in agreement, before the board would take action on it.
I don't want to hold them up any longer either.
Agreed.
I mean, you could approve the sale pending approval of the developer's agreement, then that would allow us to start drafting the sales agreement and then work on the developer's agreement with Gene and his team, and then bring it to the board.
I'd like to approve it today so that he doesn't, I don't want him to get the impression that we're trying to throw up roadblocks either. So if we can approve it today with the stipulation that, again, if he were to ever have to resell it, all he gets back is his cost. And if there is any profit, goes to the land bank.
I'm in agreement with that.
And in terms
Yep,
of
I agree.
in terms of the rental side of it. I don't know if we,
This is another opportunity for us to show, hey, we're doing things, we're getting things done. This is a unique opportunity here, and we work through the process to get it done. So I think that that's important as well.
yeah. Chuck, I'm sorry, I didn't see on the screen. Let me turn the mic to you.
No, and I'm here. I absolutely listen to the conversation. I can also say that driving by the site on Saturday, it appears that there's a temporary utility pole on the site ready to be erected. So it seems like the developer is anxious to go. So I'm encouraged by that. Would agree that we need to try to keep the collection of the single-family neighborhood going. So owner-occupied would be preferred. And I agree with any profit coming back to the land bank. But and totally agree. Let's move ahead.
Okay. Do we want to approve this with just the resale and not the rental language?
I can honestly go either way. I mean,
I do see, Jake, I see your point. Economically, I understand this is not, it doesn't pencil out. I get that.
Yeah. I don't think that's really his intention. I don't think that it necessarily makes sense unless you're in the business of losing money. But I understand.
I appreciate the point. That's a good point. And
I'm just
it's not, that doesn't
putting both
economically,
sides,
yeah,
if you were presented with it, trying to think like, okay.
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, he's indicated us that, in good faith, he's going to live
Yeah.
there with his family. He said that. So I could get comfortable without that and just move to the restriction on the sale.
So I think then, I think I would seek a motion to approve the developer's agreement with the stipulation that if he were to resell it, it would be resold at cost only. I'm not sure how we want to word that, but
Yeah, I think we already have some language in there,
Okay.
no land holding for profit.
Yeah, that's basically the same
So-
reason why that previous one came through the way it did. Was
given
the
that
language
messy
we had.
explanation, I would
I'll
seek
make
a
that
second.
motion. Chris said it so eloquently. So what he said.
Deborah, you
I'll
okay?
second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
It's exciting. It'll be nice to see something there. Okay. What's that take us to? Okay, update on the tax sale.
All right, so I provided the 2024 judicial tax sale list for the board to review. As you know, in the past, we've optioned many properties off the judicial tax sale list. It is one of the key powers of land banks across Pennsylvania is the ability to option those properties. So currently, right now, still on the list is 41 properties in the city of Erie. 15 of those properties are identified as blighted. Some of those have been previously identified on other work plans under the redevelopment authority. So some of those will be coming off. So those are indicated on there with the 3 asterisks. So as we work through this, really, I wanted to put this in front of the board, kind of get your minds looking at it and thinking about how we wanted to approach, this sale list. Typically, how it goes at the August meeting, we kind of formulate a plan for the judicial tax sale. In September, we vote to approve a work plan for 2025, and then the acquisition of the tax sale properties comes in October. So as this list begins to flush itself out, as we get closer, we know people pay their taxes, they drop off, so we end up losing some of those because of that. So really just, putting it in front of the board to kind of get some thoughts. Like I said, asterisks are blighted properties. There is one on there, 1602 Parade Street. It is a commercial industrial building on the corner. It is a major brownfield, as it was a plating facility for many years. As far as I'm aware, the plating vats are still in the facility, and it was never remediated. The authority held a placeholder on it for close to 15 years. We finally released that last year after the bankruptcy was finalized, and which allowing it to go to judicial tax sale. So the authority at that point had no interest in it, so we let it go. So it's now on tax sale. It's whether or not the land bank wanted to go down that road or not, just putting it out there that it is there. So we could certainly Through all this, we do have the ability to do conduit sales agreements, as we've done in the past with Best, Arwish, Bayfront, Sisters of St. Joseph, any organized neighborhood organization or municipal entity that would want to utilize the land bank to acquire a property, we do have that ability to do that for them as well. So, yeah, so that's it. Other than that, looking through the list, it's really a lot of residential properties. So, not much. The list is down this year. I know Jake had a good conversation with the Tax Claim Bureau last year. It's really, my opinion, I think this is just a result of the land bank doing its job. We're not seeing those properties recycle every 3 years because we have stopped that cycle in most cases, so. But yeah, I think look at that, and I think next month we'll look at it again and kind of try to get a game plan put together as we look to build, like I said, that 2025 work plan.
Any comments or questions?
I just want to say, you're right, I mean, this is much smaller than I have seen it, and I think, as evidence of the work that we're doing, it's actually very encouraging to see kind of slim pickings here.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deborah? I would just say, Aaron, we've talked about this in prior tax years as well, is that taking a step back further, just making sure that we maybe try to align with, with what's city planning doing, right? I mean, Greenway Trail, are there specific properties we should be prioritizing based on other outside things, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a conversation with the city planner would be good. We've talked about in the past ARP money versus non-qualified census tracts. So, I mean, that's a consideration. Let's not go, I'm assuming there's still some ARP dollars for demo out there. So we probably, if anything, all things equal, right, we would want to take something that's not in a qualified census tract if we can't reach it with other dollars. So just those kind of things. And I think you do look that. I know you still look through this list through that lens, but that's kind of from a broad perspective, and then we can drill down further. But
Yeah.
because
No, I agree.
otherwise, I don't know how we prioritize.
Right.
We don't want a scatter shot. We've talked about that before. That accomplishes nothing. So.
Yeah, exactly. I know, I think it was it last year or year before, the land bank focused more on the corridors, East Avenue. We acquired, I think 2 properties in the East Avenue corridor, and then we focused on the tipping point neighborhoods, that 26th Street South area. And so we've done a lot of good work, like you said, outside those QCTs and in areas where, we want to have a true focus. So, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I'll take your recommendation. I'll meet with planning. We'll look at some other projects and try to put a recommended list together, like I said, if they still exist. And then we still haven't even looked at occupancy, which is another big one. We have to look at occupancy, is make sure that it's not authorized occupancy, that we have had the one-off in past years where it was unauthorized occupancy, individual who took up residency that wasn't supposed to be there, but we will never, at this current point, go after a property that is occupied, so.
Good. Thank you. Okay, where's that take us? Takes us to update on German Street.
Oh, German Street. So if anyone's seen the July 4th fireworks on German Street, 1017, caught fire in the early morning hours. It was an external fire, from what they can tell. Fire was started by vagrants on the exterior of the property. I know we toured this property sometime last summer. It's a very large, I think it was 4 units at that time. And so the rear of the property, it was always our original intent to demolish the rear property and look at the development of that front single-family original dwelling. And Jake and I went out there, last week after the fire. The front half only sustained some minor smoke damage. The fire department stopped the spread of the fire from reaching that front. So it's still a viable candidate for us to demolish that rear structure, even more urgent now because of the condition of it. But I believe we can still salvage that front. So Jake's been working with the demolition contractors and working on getting one out there to get the rear of the property demolished, separate that unit, and then we'll take an aggressive look at getting the front of that rehabilitated here. So that's still my plan for that property. It just, the fire kind of expedited that a little bit. We did have some damage to an adjoining property, have reached out to our insurance carrier to file a claim and hopefully help that neighbor repair some of the window damage and siding damage that was a result of that fire, so.
I mean, I guess I continue to defer to your expertise on this, if you think that it's still worth trying to rehab.
I think that the work that was done by the previous owner in that front unit is too substantial to just put into the ground. I still feel as if it's a viable property. The fire might have caused a little bit of extra work to some of the exterior finishes that were already done, but I still overall think it's a viable single-family property in a very sound and stable neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, when we went through it, it looked like there was potential there. I mean, it was not beyond, so.
Yeah, I went through it again with one
That's
of the
before the
demolition
fire.
contractors, and the fire stopped about 5 foot away from anything that we intend on saving. So their opinion was that no issue, just get it out of there, and still good to move forward with everything. And we've had, the city inspectors look at the work that's been done in there, and they've gave it the green light for everything that's been done. So it's been substantial electric and plumbing done in there. And I think it's still a pretty solid house, so I'd hate to, it's like a half-done project, hate to give that up.
So we'll lean into this, get this moving, and,
Yeah.
okay. I'm okay with still moving ahead with it. I thought when we toured it that it was a good candidate. The housing shortage and need for units, we don't want to tear everything down. Tear down what has to come down, but save what we can save, so,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, thank you.
Is there a budget? I mean, so are we okay? I know we set aside funds for this.
Yeah, we have some money set aside in rehab for this one. We're going to close out the work plan 2022 with the county land bank and request that we move that money into the 24 work plan to go after this rehab and potentially one or two others.
So
that we
from a
have,
budget
so.
standpoint, we shouldn't have to move anything right now?
No, we should be able to add to the budget if anything.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that? You good, Deborah? You good? Okay, any other business?
The only other thing I want to bring to the board's attention, and really I want to thank Jake for his service to the Land Bank and the Redevelopment Authority. He will be leaving the authority the end of this week to move on to other wonderful adventures of his life. And so, we thank him for his service to the authority, to the Land Bank, and really, to help drive the mission of revitalizing our neighborhood. So I appreciate his service and thank him for that.
Best of luck to you.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you.
Thanks for all
Thank you
you've
for all the help that you've provided. Sorry that you're leaving. It's news to me, but good luck with the next chapter. Yep.
That is all I have.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Chuck, any other comments, questions?
No, I'm good. I appreciate the ability to participate remotely.
Okay. All right, if that is all, I just want to, again, thank you guys for the tremendous work you're doing, helping us move along too, and just want to keep that momentum going. And again, Jake, best of luck with your new endeavors. And if that is all, we can go ahead and adjourn for the day. Thank you.
Thank you.